So I was a student at Berkeley, both as an undergraduate and as a graduate student. I started in the fall of 1985. I finished in the fall of 1996. What I would like to mostly focus my remarks on are my memories of Professor Mitchell as an undergraduate student. So in the um, spring semester of 1989, I was starting to take core civil engineering courses, one of which was with Professor Mitchell, Introduction to Geotechnical Engineering. I also had Carl Monesmith for transportation engineering, Alex Scordelis for structural analysis. I now recognize that these are all incredibly legendary figures. Of course, I was like 20 years old. I didn't understand those things at that time. Um, but we did, and when I say we, I mean the cohort of undergraduate students taking Professor Mitchell's class did have a sense, even going into it before we had seen him, that this was something special because he had something that nobody else had. He had won the UC Berkeley Academic Senate Distinguished Teaching Award. And that award, at least at that time, did not very often go to engineering professors. It was usually more for the letters and science people. So knowing that he had received this award, we had a sense we were in for something special. And so the class began, and there was nothing flashy about his style, but there was a lot of substance. And there's a couple of particular things I'd just like to note about how he taught and how it resonated with me and those around me. The first thing I would say is he was extraordinarily well organized. In a particular lecture, we're not talking now about the very first lecture in the semester, but down the road, he would succinctly summarize the key points from the lecture before. Some of those key takeaways. And what that serves to do is kind of get you in the rhythm of the topic again, so that when he starts talking about new material, you're ready for it. After that summary, he would tell you what he was going to tell you. And he would write just a few words on the board, usually 3 lines. This is what I'm going to talk about today. And then, of course, he would deliver on those topics. So that organization seems like a small thing, but when you're learning this material for the first time, it's incredibly helpful. The second thing I'd like to emphasize about his style, which I really appreciated, was there are different ways to teach engineering principles. You can do it in almost a cookbook-like way. Do this, then do this, then do this. And a lot of professors do that. Professor Mitchell would try, even for us juniors, to explain the fundamentals, why things are the way they are, and then he would tell you how to apply things. So you would get to those procedural things, but he also tried to convey why we did things the way we did. And that style of teaching really resonated with me. I really appreciated seeing under the hood of why things worked the way they did. I would study his lecture notes meticulously, basically after every lecture, and I would try to make sure that I could follow the logic. And invariably, I would find there was a gap in my understanding, so then I would go to his office hours. He was very generous with his time in the office hours. We would go through the concepts, we'd talk about homework, and we developed a bit of a relationship. I think he knew me better than most of the students in the class because I was such a regular visitor. And just the last thing I would say is we got towards the end of that semester. This was spring semester, so the summer was to follow. And I was trying to get a job in civil engineering as an intern. I wasn't graduating. And I was putting out feelers, doing cold calls, and nothing was really hitting. At that time, I wasn't certain what part of civil engineering I wanted to go into. Geotech was a candidate, but I hadn't made any decisions yet. So after asking some questions about the class one day, he would sometimes ask how things were going, and I said, well, Professor Mitchell, I'm really getting frustrated. We're getting close to the summer, and I haven't found a job yet. And it wasn't a great economy in 1989, and Professor Mitchell looked at me and said, really, you don't have a job? Let me make a phone call for you. And so he picked up the phone. I can't remember whether it was while I was sitting there or maybe it was a little bit later. He called a fellow named Alan Kropp, who's a Berkeley area geotechnical engineer. He basically told Mr. Kropp, you ought to have a look at this young student. And I got a job because of Professor Mitchell and, of course, because of Alan Kropp as well. That started a great relationship with that firm. It sent me down the path that I would eventually choose geotech. Not because it was the only thing I liked. I kind of liked everything in civil, but it was the one that registered the most with me. And so he really did have an impact on the course of my professional life. I had lots of other experiences with him in grad school, but let's just keep it on that undergraduate focus. I'm so grateful to have known Professor Mitchell.